Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is exactly 8:37 a.m. South African time. We cross over to Iran and we are going to now speak with Hassan Seria. He's a Press TV correspondent and we're going to talk about the helicopter that Iranian President Raisi was traveling in had crashed. We also understand that search operations are underway. And let's just look at the current situation. Ebrahim Raisi, Iran's president, we have just heard now, has died in a helicopter crash aged 63. There are, of course, other questions that are going to be emanating from this particular situation. And the one very important question is going to be, was this a natural accident where he had died or was he assassinated? Assalamu alaikum to you, Hassan Seria. Welcome to the program. And of course, international lines are absolutely abuzz with these questions. The death of Ebrahim Raisi, undoubtedly Iranian people are currently going into mourning. But the question, the all important question will be, was this a natural disaster or was it an assassination? Welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum. Shukran very much for that. I'm talking to you very much from Cape Town, not Iran.
I beg your
But,
pardon.
of course, importantly, the story is emanating from Iran. And yes, as you correctly say, news that came in at around 5 a.m. South African time this morning is that the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, as well as the Iranian Foreign Minister, Mr. Abdullahian, perished in that helicopter crash. Now, of course, from the Iranian side at this point, and I know there's a lot of speculation, as you pointed out, when the news first broke that this helicopter had made, as the initial report indicated, a crash landing. The Iranian side and within Iran, the view is that this was at this point a natural incident. There, of course, are a number of circumstances that give rise to that sort of assumption. It is because of the inclement weather conditions within the region. They were in a mountainous terrain as well. We had heavy fog as well, and this was evident even from the early images that started coming in as the rescue teams arrived within that particular region. So at this stage in time, from the Iranian official position at this point, there's no indication of a suspicion of any sort of foul play or any sort of indication that it could have been an assassination. I know that these are the type of suggestions that are swirling online on social media and so on. But at this point, treating it very much as a natural incident, an incident of a helicopter that was traveling from one region to another in weather conditions that when we in fact got onto this helicopter, we saw that there were clear skies and so on. But of course, as one reaches altitude and because of the region they were in, they then encountered this heavy fog, and that is, it appears, the time when the helicopter encountered some issues. Whether those were technical issues or whether it was sort of because of the terrain they were navigating at that point in time and because of the heavy fog and the mountainous terrain, that is not clear, and I think an investigation will give a clearer picture on that. And of course, arising from that, we will see whether there is any truth to the speculation. But at this point, very much just treating it as a natural incident that has occurred.
Okay, we understand that Raisi was a former Chief Justice. He was touted as a potential successor to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the 85-year-old supreme leader of Iran. Now that he has passed on, what do you know? Whom do you believe will be the successor to Ali Khamenei? And does this leave a serious political void as far as Iran is concerned, given what's playing out in Palestine at this point in time? Iran obviously is a strong supporter of Hamas, and undoubtedly they're going to be some sort of a void left behind. And I think also there will be, as far as the Iranian parliament is concerned or government is concerned, that this position be filled sooner rather than later?
Indeed, I think we should look at the Iranian system as a robust state, in fact. The Iranian system has very clear systems in place when it comes to, for example, the demise of a president before the end of his term, as has happened now. And we've already seen, in fact, the interim president, who is his deputy, Mr. Mohammed Mohabbir, taking over, or Mohbir rather, taking over and even convening a meeting already this morning. We must also keep in mind that Ibrahim Raisi, the president of Iran, is the head of the government. Sayyid Ali Khamenei is the head of state. So just keeping that in mind, I think to the question of him being a potential successor to the supreme leader, the Iranian system works where it has a council of experts that actually brings together or puts into a list a number of candidates that are potential successors to assume the role of the supreme leader. They then go through quite a rigorous process in which they assess the integrity of these individuals and then they come out with a decision on who that successor is. So, Said Raisi was definitely one of the contenders, but he certainly is not the only one. So, it does not really pose too much of a challenge to the Iranian system on whether the fact that he is no longer there. I think looking at him and looking at the trajectory, as you pointed out, he was the Chief Justice, he was the Attorney General, the Deputy Chief Justice, and he held a number of very critical and important positions within the Iranian system over a number of years. The chances that he may have become the supreme leader was quite strong. So maybe from that point of view, maybe he's not, they will not have somebody of his caliber, but certainly they will have somebody within that range for that consideration. From the perspective of a political void, the Iranian system already since 1979, when the Islamic Revolution took place in that country, and Imam Khomeini, of course, they went to a referendum and they implemented the system because of the public support and popular vote. They took clear positions, for example, on Palestine, severing ties with both the apartheid regime in South Africa as well as the Zionist regime in Israel. There were no questions asked about that. They were very clear that these are principled positions of Iran as an Islamic country. And so we'll see a continuation of that sort of trajectory. Where we may see some sort of changes, because we know this was only his first term as president, and he was likely to stand as a candidate for a follow-up term as well, is that maybe we'll see some sort of difference in the type of government within Iran. But that certainly does not point to any changes within the policies of the country. Its support for resistance, its support for the Palestinian cause, its positioning in terms of a number of issues, those will remain constant. I think to put it quite simply, or to simplify the situation, his loss will certainly be felt because he certainly was an important figure within the Iranian establishment. But Iran is also not a country that is that it is foreign for this concept of martyrdom or of losing its leadership. And we've seen this with, for example, the head of the Quds Force, General Qasem Soleimani, was assassinated by the Americans. We've seen that now during the Gaza operational Aqsa flood, in which Iran has also sacrificed a number of top leaders from the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. And even with all of that, the systems have continued to operate and function normally. So there is quite a robust political system in place. It is a state, and it does have the mechanisms for people to take on and to take forward that program that Iran has in place at the moment.
Okay, I have two more questions for you. We do know that Ibrahim Raisi was an experienced prosecutor in multiple jurisdictions before coming to Tehran in the year 1985. It was in the capital city that, according to human rights organizations, he was part of a committee of judges who oversaw executions of political prisoners. That obviously also probably didn't bode well with the majority of the people of Iran.
Well, I think we've got to be very cognizant about the 1979 revolution, what happened after that, the role of the West in trying to topple the new system that had come into place, which of course challenged a government that did not have popular support, that of the Shah, which was really a repressive regime that was imposed and backed by the West. So this view is very much a Western sort of view. If we look at, for example, the reality of the attack on the Iranian uh, headquarters of the ruling party and the ruling establishment, and the amount of leaders that were killed within those attacks that were sanctioned by the West as well, it paints a very different picture. We also understand from our own experience here in South Africa that we were collaborators with the regime, and so they would have to be held to account in some way or the other. In Iran, we of course have a system in which there is the death penalty. So this sort of framing of as a
Hassan,
individual that was running the
okay, I lost
judiciary.
you there for a minute. Please continue. I lost you there for a minute.
Okay, so looking at his role here as a prosecutor, of course, those are things that we must be cognizant of. And so I know this is part of the Western narrative of looking at him in a particular way, or trying to portray him in a particular way. And I can tell you that I actually interviewed him about 10 years ago when he was the Deputy Chief Justice. And he was very unapologetic about the trajectory that Iran had to take, firstly by implementing an Islamic system of governance, because this was supported by over 90%, almost 100% of the population supported that Iran implement an Islamic system. And with that came an Islamic judiciary. And part of the Islamic system is that the death penalty is present as well. And so he was quite unapologetic about the reality of what the people's choice was. So I think to perhaps speculate that he was not popular with the Iranian population would be inaccurate. In fact, if you look at his election results, he won over 62% of the vote. So he was, in fact, quite a popular leader.
Let's wrap up now. We do know that Ebrahim Raisi made many speeches. He called out to the Western community as well since the start of the war on Gaza in October to condemn the genocide and the massacres um, committed by the illegal occupiers on Palestine. He called on the international community to intervene, and he made these calls over and over again. You have indicated that the political system in Iran is very, very robust. So undoubtedly, somebody else will then take up the cudgels and make sure that the calls for stopping the genocide on Gaza and the Palestinian people will be ongoing despite the death of Ebrahim Raisi.
Indeed, and I think here we must also pay homage to the foreign minister who also perished in that crash, Mr. Hussein Amir Abdullahian, because he has also worked tirelessly during this period since the launch of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood for the individuals and the people in Palestine that have been under this repressive and oppressive and genocidal regime for decades now already. So certainly there will be a continuation of that program of action. In fact, in his final hours, if you were to look at the final engagement that he had, which was the launch of that dam project with Azerbaijan, he even there announced, this is the Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, he announced again that our commitment to the Palestinian cause, because it is a cause of justice, will continue, that Iran will remain unwavering in this particular stance. And that is quite an important stance that he took, and quite important that he also chose to make that announcement there. Because we know Azerbaijan, despite being a Muslim majority country, is a country that has extremely big ties with Israel as well. And in fact, to the extent that these two nations, they have joint military exercises, they support each other with military equipment and so having to make such a statement at that point with a president that has such strong ties with Israel as well was a critical sort of point and critical decision on the side of Ibrahim Raisi. With Said Ali Khamenei as the head of state of Iran, of course, things like foreign policy and that certain issues sit within his domain and it will need his approval. So therefore, we will certainly see a consistent sort of support of Palestine and a constant continuation of the positions as far as the foreign policy and particularly the support of Palestine. That certainly will continue from the Iranian side.
Hassan Seria, you are a Press TV correspondent based in Cape Town. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
8:52 News and Views moving along, and we are now going to be talking with we're going to be talking to a professor of English literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, Professor Mohammed Saeed Marandi. And I started there for a minute because I thought he too was a journalist, but no, he is a professor, and we are going to be talking about decoding Iran's complex diplomacy.